Okay, everybody, welcome back. So in this section, section 7, part 2, we're going to take a look at the toolbar and some of the more common used tools that you're going to be using when you're using Studio One. So open up your session here, and if you're on the edit screen as I am here, let's just talk a little bit about the toolbars up here. So the toolbar resides up here where my cursor is. You see me clicking through some of the tools here. These are the most common tools that you're going to use, the ones that I use anyway. So over here, if we take a look at this arrow tool here, we have this little triangle that's down at the bottom here, and you can see when I highlight this, the arrow tool kind of lights up. And I want to show you the way these tools kind of work. So the first thing I'm going to do, just so we have an example, I'm going to go to our loop folder and I'm going to grab one of these loops like we did in the last section. I'm just going to throw it on my track here, and I'll close my browser. Whoops, we don't want to do that. Sorry, we want to just expand that a little bit. Okay, so we'll expand the track here. So what happens here on the arrow tools, that's just basically what it is. You can click on it, you can see the arrow tool here. You can do things like on audio events with your little hands. When you go up to the corners of your audio events, you'll have your little cursor turn into a little finger. You can see this little triangle at the top here. You can left click and drag and create what's called a fade out. On the other side here, you can left click and drag, and that's what's called a fade in. You can left click and you can move this thing anywhere you want, okay, on your timeline using the arrow tool. Okay, if you were to click on this tool next to it, this is called the range tool, and the range tool allows you to left click. You can see when I bring my cursor over my audio event, you see how it turns to like a cross or a plus symbol? If you were to left click, hold down, and then take your mouse and kind of drag, you can see we're highlighting a section here. Okay, we're selecting a range, hence range tool. We can just delete this if we want, and we wanted to delete the audio there. That's one way we can do that. We can just do Command Z and undo that. So the range tool is just that. You can left click, highlight, and you can select different parts of the audio. Now let's say you wanted to highlight this as a range with the range tool, and then if you wanted to go back to your arrow tool, you can now take that part that you just cut out and you can drag it to a new track if you wanted. Okay, so that's kind of how the range tool it kind of works here. So we're just going to, oops, close this for a second. Okay, so the next tool next to that is our blade tool or our split tool. So if you hover over the tool, you'll see it'll tell you what the name is. Now also look at this, something interesting. When I hover over split tool, you see how it says split tool with the number 3? That is the shortcut on your keyboard. If I highlight over the range tool, it says range tool number 2, and the arrow tool is arrow tool number 1. Those represent the numbers on your keyboard as shortcuts. So if I wanted to go from my split tool back to my arrow tool, I can just hit the numeral 1 on my keyboard. As you can see, it changes. If I hit number 2, it'll change over to the range tool, and numeral 3 will go back to the split tool. And I highly recommend you kind of learn those shortcuts. You'll find that you'll use those an awful lot, and they're much faster than having to bring your mouse up here and to select the tool. Just a thought. Anyway, now that we're on the split tool, if I bring my cursor over my audio event, you can see it turns into like a little knife. I can left click and I can cut out a section. I can go back to my arrow tool number 1, and I can just left click, and as you can see now we have split this audio event into 3 different sections. Okay, I'm going to Command Z, so we'll get out of that. Okay, number 4 here is the eraser tool, so I can either highlight that, or once again I can just hit numeral 4 on my keyboard. And the eraser tool, you'll see it turns into an eraser. You can left click on it and it erases the whole thing. Do Command Z. Or you can use your blade tool. Let's go to number 3. Let's make a cut here and a cut here. And then if I go to number 4 to my eraser and I left click, it'll erase the section that we cut out. Okay, pretty straightforward. Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, undo. Number 5 is going to be our pencil tool, or if we click on that, number 5. And that's going to allow us to, that's really good for drawing and automation. But you can see I can take this and I can just kind of left click and draw over that, and you can see it kind of eliminated that with the pencil tool there if you wanted to. Okay, this is really good for automation, that if I were to bring down my automation lane here by clicking this little symbol at the bottom of my audio track, see that little zigzag here? You'll see here that we opens up our automation lanes, and here's our volume and here's our panning. If we take our pencil tool, we can draw in, I'm left clicking and I'm using my mouse, we can draw in volume automation using our pencil tool. Okay, so that's the more popular use for the pencil tool, or that's the way I use the pencil tool. Command Z will get rid of that, and we can reclose the automation just by doing that, the automation lane. Okay, this tool here is our mute tool. So if we go to number 6 on our keyboard is our shortcut, our mute tool. And again, when you hover over your audio event, you can see it turns into a speaker. I can just left click and now I've muted that entire audio event. Okay, and if I want to click on it again, it'll unmute it. Once again, I can go to my blade tool and I can cut a section out. And let's say we just wanted to mute that one section in the middle there. We can mute that and it'll mute. Okay. So we'll do Command Z, undo Command Z. Our next tool from that is called our bend tool, audio bending tool. Now I don't really use this all that much. I think again this is something where you can left click and you can stretch the audio. See how I'm doing that here? Okay, I'm going to where I want to stretch the audio. I'm left clicking with my mouse and I'm stretching my audio. So bending the audio is going to kind of move the audio across the timeline. Not something that I typically use. It's probably not a tool you're going to use an awful lot. You can experiment with that, but that's what that is. So I'll do undo, undo. Okay. Number 8 is our listen tool. Okay, a listen tool is really just a little speaker where you can actually, and as you scrub across, you'll actually be able to hear it. Why isn't that working? Oh, it could be because of I'm using my video recording software. Sometimes some of the functions don't work when you're trying to record what you're doing on the screen. But you can play with that. If you take that and put it over your audio event, you'll be able to hear that. Okay, we can go over to number 9. This is our audio. Oh, we did our audio bend already. And then we have our strip silence, but again, we'll use that in a later section. It's more of an advanced feature. Okay, so these are most of your tools. Most of the tools that you're going to use are going to be number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Do the pencil tool. You might use the mute tool. You can also mute an event several different ways. You can just go to your arrow tool. You can highlight your audio event. You can right click on it and you'll see down here in the event drop down menu, you'll see something called mute events. You can mute it that way as well. Okay, I'll do Command Z there. So there are several ways to do things, but the most common tools are going to be up here in the toolbar. And again, 1 through 5 is what you're going to want to use more than anything else. Over here, our Q here, this is a quantize tool, which again is more of an advanced feature we'll probably do in another video at one point, or you can read the manual, you can look online and get some stuff there. This is our macro toolbar. I can open and close that. PreSonus is giving you a bunch of macros that you can go ahead. It's like shortcuts to do common tasks, and you can customize the macro toolbar. Again, we'll do that in another video. It's more of an advanced thing, or you can read the manual. It's pretty easy to use, but that's our macro toolbar. And we can input the quantizing here for like quantizing drums and such. And then across the top here, you have a place where you can choose what you want. If you want to quantize the music, or say a drum pattern, what time signature do you want to quantize it to? Over here we have our time base in seconds, and we can change that. As we talked about earlier, we can change the timeline from seconds to say samples, and you'll see that the ruler up top here, the timeline changes. We can go to bars and beats if you want to use that. Really good for MIDI. I typically leave it in time code, minutes and seconds. Okay. And then over here we have our snap feature where things will snap to a grid. It can be adaptive. We could snap it to a bar. You can play around with all of these. I don't want to make this video a million hours long here, but you can just go ahead and check the way. Right now it's snapped, it's adaptive. So if I take this event, it'll snap. You'll see it snapping to the nearest second here, the nearest bar here. So you'll see that here. Okay, and if you change that to a bar and you move it, it'll snap to 1 bar of music. You can see that. Okay. Over here we have the toggle, the snap on and off. Right now it's on. Like I said, as you see, as I move this audio event, you can see it's snapping to the grid. But if I were to shut this off, now this is kind of free floating and I can put it wherever I want. Now, typically I would keep it in snap mode, especially if you start working with MIDI drums and loops and you want to do everything on a grid. Snap is always a good idea. Right here next to that is where you'll, again, rippling is more of an advanced feature. I wouldn't worry about that at this stage. This is our auto scroll. So when we play back our audio, if we turn this on, as it goes off the screen will just scroll along. If you turn this off, the playhead will just go off the screen and keep going. It will keep playing, but you won't see the edit screen scroll. Okay. And then after that, we have our transfers, and we have our start, our song, and our upgrade. So that is kind of our toolbar here. Again, pretty simple. Again, tools 1 through 5 are the ones you're going to use more times than not. But those are the toolbars and what kind of resides across the top. And most of those tools you'll also be able to find in the different audio, the different menus up here. You'll have a lot of those same tools up here depending on what it is. And I urge you to kind of familiarize yourself with a lot of the different menus and the different things. Most of the stuff is really self-explanatory. And again, Studio One is such a powerful DAW. We're not going to have time in this video to go through every single feature. My goal here is to give you kind of the basics and show you the basics to get you up and running. And then you'll probably want to take some more advanced training in another course maybe down the road. So if come back for the next section. In the next section, we're going to take a look at the inspector, take a look at some other things on the edit screen, and we'll keep moving forward. So I look forward to seeing you in the next section.